You guys have seen this truck before in shop update videos of the past year, but today we're finally going to put the bed on and kind of do some stuff that will make the truck resemble a truck.
This is that OBS truck. It was a really nice truck, but we're gonna do some different cool stuff with this. This chassis is a stock chassis, and somebody already put an LS9 crate motor in it, a dry sump crate motor, and they didn't change the accessory drive, so look at this. God, they cut this frame out to fit the AC compressor, so woof, man, we gotta fix all that. We got a piece of a factory frame that we're gonna graft in and smooth out. We're gonna box this chassis. We're gonna build a new cross member because we're putting BMW dual clutch 7-speed paddle shifted transmission behind that LS9 crate motor. So we're also ditching all the ride tech suspension. We're gonna put JRI coilovers on this, and we're gonna build a torque arm rear suspension. So we've got a Cortex Racing torque arm and their Watts link, and then we got a brand new 9-inch housing. We're gonna build a fuel tank. We're gonna do a lot of trick stuff to this thing. So
if you remember, we actually put this thing on our chassis table, and it was welded with risers at our ride height.
The chassis is on the frame table. All the boxing of the frame is done. We've boxed from where the factory boxing starts. Slid the plate in behind this and welded. Everything's primed inside the frame. So it's boxed all the way back to the C's that we welded in. And then cross members that are unnecessary or we're gonna be in the way of stuff were removed, which is pretty much all of them. But we did the frame repair, which turned out really, really good. The guy Frank down in Texas shipped us up a section of a front frame rail, and got that all sectioned in, and that turned out really well. Nobody will ever be able to tell that's been done. And the way we did it was we ended up cutting along the weld and taking the factory cap off that frame, doing the same thing on the new frame section, taking this cap off, and then sectioning out this section here that needed to be replaced. You know, welding it all back in, smoothing out the welds inside, priming inside everything, and putting that cap back on and welding all the way around that. And then even where the old spring pocket was, you probably can't see here, but where that old spring pocket was, you got to remove that. So it kind of leaves the inside here unfinished. So we put a plate in here and smoothed all that out where it looks factory. So really happy with that. Got all the front suspension on except for the shocks. We're still waiting on those from JRI. This is that Ride Tech bar that you already had on here, which I wanted to reuse because the shape is so good, and it's like a 1050 rate bar. But we had to make our own end links, which actually turned out really good. So I machined some adapters to go in this 5/8 time. That'll use the QA1 3/8 bolts, and then made these steel spacers and did a 5/8 heim at the top. And we've cycled this stuff all up and down, and it works really good. So pretty happy with how that turned out. Got all the new steering pieces in, just as a refresh, you know, instead of, you know, keeping the original stuff, just bought all new. Headers are on. They fit really, really well. Tucked nice inside this QA1 bracket, fit the frame contour nice. We went ahead and tacked V-bands on. This is coming along really, really, really well. Happy with that. These are the parts for the rear sway bar. So I'm actually going to use this chromoly tube that's down here, and we're actually gonna sleeve the frame across here in front of the C, and the sway bar will ride on Delrin bushings inside the sleeve, so you'll have a rear bar in here that'll attach to the 9-inch. So that's what that is. We made a bracket to mount the battery. Battery's in an awesome spot there. Really happy with that. Got it out of the engine bay. That'll clean the engine bay up a bunch. Right now, I've got all my X, Y, and Z measurements for having all the pieces water jet for the frame stiffener. So we're gonna create like a big X member in here, all out of plate that's all water jetted. It will be super nice. It's going to incorporate the transmission cross member in that frame stiffener, and it's also going to incorporate the mount for the torque arm in that stiffener as well. So all of that is kind of held up right now because I'm waiting on the new rear end housing.
So we had the bottom of the frame rail 5 inches off the ground, built all the rear suspension, redid some damaged sections of the frame. Today I think will be pretty fulfilling for us at least. Just if I go back and recap a little bit, it is a stock OBS frame. We didn't want to get too wild, and really at the time there wasn't too many great aftermarket options for an OBS frame that would perform like we would want it to perform. We designed and had Waterjet and broke for us a big inner stiffener that we welded in once we had welded in boxing plates on the stock frame. We sectioned part of the frame over the rear axle to put like a gradual little step in the frame that fits underneath the stock bed floor. And then the front end is just like the level 3 QA1 control arm system, which I've actually been really pretty impressed with. They've got low friction ball joints that are rebuildable, high ends on the control arms. We just didn't put QA1 shocks on it. We put JRI double adjustable coilovers on it with Hyperco springs. So we wanted something a little bit nicer there.
Oh yeah. So it is all four. Cool. So these are the front. So I got 800-pound springs on these. These are double adjustable, and they're the simple adjustments that I like. So this is the canister. Since this is I don't know, I guess you'd consider this a shorter stroke shock. It's still a pretty darn long shock if you compare it to other chassis and trucks out there running around, but this can only hold so much fluid, so it's better to do a remote canister to give us more fluid capacity. Cortex Racing is obviously the ones that set up all the valving. They get the parts and pieces from JRI, but then they valve them at Cortex Racing. We gave him all the corner weight measurements. I gave him the spring rates. We gave him all the motion ratios, and they set us up with really, really good JRI coilovers. So these are the fronts. So now we'll look at the backs. I'm curious to see what spring rate I picked for the rear. I don't remember now. So the neat thing about JRI is that I can, look at this, like I can tell them exactly how much room I have in my bracket, and they'll machine the spacers for me. So I don't have to do that. Rears were a 400-pound spring. Very cool. So again, double adjustable. Look at this, man. I'm so pumped at that. They machined all the spacers for me. So cool. Got little helpers on them.
Those are nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, take up that slack so your spring ain't bouncing around.
The rear end, we use a resource that we've used in the past, which is Cortex Racing. Cortex Racing makes like a universal 9-inch torque arm system with a Watts link. So we got the Watts link and a lot of their components so that we could fabricate and weld and make a torque arm system with a Watts link for the rear end. And that has turned out really, really well. The owners were really helpful in helping us figure out the geometry and getting the anti-squat number like we wanted, keeping the roll center low, and a lot of stuff that we have over the years learned that has to be in a certain way to make a truck perform pretty well. It's got an LS9 crate motor that's a dry sump motor. This actually was in the truck when Clay bought the truck. So Clay likes to use the term that he bought the truck for the sum of its parts, and really one of them was this low mile dry sump LS9. So we really didn't touch the motor other than cleaning it up, prepping it, and Cerakoting it. And then when Zach was here, Zach helped us build a really cool dry sump tank. We even kept the radiator that was in the truck, but built our own fan shroud, air to water intercooler or heat exchanger on, integrated a new AC condenser into the mounting on the radiator. Zach built a really cool intercooler water tank. There's a lot of neat stuff happening in this engine bay that took some effort. What's left on the engine bay side is really mainly just the engine harness. We've gotten busy here in the shop, and just trying to get caught up on projects has been something a bit overwhelming. And so we've had ANX Motorsport out of Atlanta come in, and they're actually right now as we speak finishing up the mil-spec engine harness. So we had already placed the Autosport connectors in the firewall, so from there, they were able to build from the Autosport through the engine. And so just as soon as they're done here in a week or so, they're going to ship it up to us. We'll be able to install, and then Ed's going to work with us to calibrate all the Motec electronics and get this thing back up and running. What has been a fun learning curve is figuring out everything that's needed to do the BMW dual clutch 7-speed transmission.
Transmission bracket and adapter and all that stuff are on. I went ahead and started making like little bracketry. Like this, these are some of the sensors that we're going to use with the Motec system. So we like to remote mount all the pressure sending units. So there's a bit of anti-vibration, so the sensors will last forever. This is the wideband to CAN module. Made a bracket for that bolts up in there, and there's an air gap below it, so that's for the O2 sensors. Put the Bosch NOx sensors in it. Started on planning transmission cooler plumbing. Plenty of room in here, but we are going to heat sleeve the transmission cooler lines. So these transmissions have to have a very specific temperature that they operate in, about 175 plus or minus 15 degrees. So I bought an inline thermostat from Innovative, and I'm going to mount that down here, and then that's what these lines are going to go to, and then lines will come out of the thermostat housing, and they'll end up running up through here and go to a transmission cooler. So that's some of that plumbing that started. This is the hot, so transmission fluid out of the trans. Right before the thermostat, I'll have a temperature sensor so that the Motec can monitor the temperature of the transmission fluid. And then we can also throw up warnings on the Dakota gauges or something to notify you if you're out of the operating range of the transmission temperature.
It's not an automatic transmission, but it is a manual transmission that's operated in a different way. So it has internal clutches that engage and disengage to put it in gear. So it's an electronically controlled manual transmission. So it doesn't have a clutch and flywheel like you would expect a manual transmission to have. It's actually direct connected and coupled to the engines. We've got an adapter from Seems Legit Garage. We've got an HTG controller, and then it's going to communicate via CAN with all the Motec electronics. So it will be a paddle shifted transmission. You'll be able to put it in drive mode also, so you can drive it like an automatic. The computer will control the shifting, and you can let your wife drive it. So the whole theory behind it has been a truck that is really fun on the street. Your wife could drive it, anybody could drive the truck, and if you wanted to go do a track day or just kind of goof off, you could manually override and put it in paddle mode or manual paddle mode. So real quick, I guess we'll walk around to the back and you'll see kind of some of the neat stuff that's going to be under the bed and hidden. So before we get the bed on, I just wanted to show you this stuff really quick. Again, these are those steps that we put in the frame. Zach did a really good job on that stuff when he was here. There's some nice fish plates that we had water jetted and all TIG welded onto the frame. We built out a spline rear sway bar with adjustable rate that's quick disconnect. The Watts link mount is all welded onto the rear axle housing. It is a traditional Torino ended 9-inch, but we had Gear Effects build it in the standard 14-bolt width. So it's wider like your 14-bolt would have been in an SS truck. To do vehicle speed, or one of the ways that we can do vehicle speed is we're got a Hall effect sensor on reading off a tone ring on the third member, so that's kind of cool. And then you guys can see the billet Watts link pivot and the Watts link arms. And then this is something that we've been doing a lot in the past and incorporated in this build too, was an aluminum fuel tank that we designed in software and then had all the parts water jetted, and then the lid or the top of the tank is all machined aluminum. So what we ran into when trying to weld flanges was it was hard to control the heat in aluminum, and by the time that you had spent the labor hours welding and even buying or machining the flanges to weld on, you might as well just machine an entire top to the fuel tank with all the bolt patterns for fuel fill, pump hanger assembly, and fuel level. So this has 12 internal chambers which work really well. There's fluid or fuel control holes, so the fuel can only move in one direction and get to the sump. And then this has twin Warborough 450 pumps, so the engine can run off one 450, and then there's a redundant 450. So if you had a pump failure or fuel pressure drop below a certain amount, the PDM could cycle the other pump on to try to, you know, fix the fuel pressure issue, or if it saw a circuit failure in the first pump, that it would know to turn the second pump on. So anyways, a lot of really cool high-tech stuff, a beautiful stainless exhaust, carbon fiber drive shaft, all this stuff. So I wanted you guys to be able to see that before we go putting the bed on. And I guess one thing that you won't be able to see that we should talk about real quick is this truck has the anti-gravity lithium battery that we love using, but typically an owner has to have a lithium battery charger, and you know, it's just another thing that they need to possess or, you know, plug into their garage. So we built a mount for the Noco brand lithium charger and pre-installed it in the bed of the truck. This is actually a kill for the battery, a battery disconnect, and then this is the wiring that will go over and ultimately hook to the battery. But so now all you have to do is just hook an extension cord up to the charge port that's where the fuel fill used to be. So all you gotta do is open this up and plug your extension cord in, and then this tender can kick itself on and off and keep the lithium battery charged up over the winter or whenever you're not driving it. And then the little blue auto button is just a remote disconnect or reconnect for the battery disconnect. I think we're ready to put the bed on. So this is a giant transmission cooler, and the BMW transmissions in the service manual have a very specific temperature range that they want to operate in. I don't remember this number exactly, but it's like 175 degrees Fahrenheit plus or minus 10 degrees is all. So we've got a pretty big cooler, we've got a billet pan that holds more fluid, and then I bought a inline thermostat that's exactly 175 degrees or whatever that number was. So the thermostat will control shut to bring temperature up and open, and hopefully this is enough airflow to keep it within that range. So that's going to be a little bit of a learning curve and will require some, you know, figuring out, but you know, we want to put a lot of cooling in that transmission. And then I guess another thing to look at here is a full like mil spec front end wiring. Yeah, so this is, even though, you know, even the horn wires are twisted pair, all DR20 or DR25, you know, Raychem covering. And then this is kind of a neat thing. I put DTM 3-pin connectors on both sides up here, and this is for the front turn and park signal wiring. So if you guys have noticed, like on those trucks, there's 6 different bulb connections. So if you wanted to pull the grill, you would have to disconnect every single bulb connector. So you have to pull them all. So what I did was just put DTM connectors. So each one of these is like a sub lighting, a sub harness for the front lighting. So all this can stay on. If you want to pull the grill, you just disconnect this and disconnect this one. And so you don't have to pull all the bulbs and sockets. Like, it takes a little bit of time, it takes a couple hours and some materials, but at least if this ever had to come apart, it's way more serviceable.
For sure.
Stomach's growling. There we go, that's good right there. Actually, this is too, it's just maybe a hair off.
Yeah.
We're close enough. I'm starting all these bed bolts right now, and what we're trying to do is make sure the bed's in its exact good correct location. We're gonna verify our fuel fill location, and then we can pull the bed back off, drill the fuel fill hole, and then the bed can be installed forever. there's no, it really can't move much.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess we could put the bumper on while it's in the air.
Yeah.
All right, truck's back in the air. So what we got to finish now is we'll put the battery tender wiring up to the battery, finish squaring the bed away, torque all the bed bolts. Is that it for the bottom?
Breather hoses.
Oh yeah, the fuel tank breather. We'll run that hose up inside the bed. So those dual chamber vent canisters that we sell on our website. So this is the dual chamber vent canister. So it's got a reservoir on each side so that you can vent your fuel tank or you can vent the rear end. In our situation, we're gonna run the fuel tank vent and we're gonna wire it into both these. So we've got twice as much air movement in and out than one, right?
Love it.
Yeah. It's like one, but twice. Yeah, it's better than one because it's two. Since this truck's got quite a bit of fuel pump capacity, it could potentially kick on both 450s. So we need a lot of air to be able to come back in and out of the fuel tank. So we've got a -8 hose that'll run up, and I'm gonna split that off into 2 -6s. So we're gonna actually mount that vent canister actually up inside. We're gonna mount it up inside the bedside. So you definitely want it as high as you can possibly get it so liquid fuel can't get up inside the canister. So Dylan's already drilled all the holes, and I really like that these OBSs, you can fit something up inside the bed. I mean, there's 5 inches of width between the outer and the inner bed side, so that's pretty cool. Hot mic, check, check. So this is the moment of truth. We've got our battery tender mounted. I've got it connected to the battery. And we're gonna see if this works. Just gotta turn it on. And then I gotta set it to lithium. Now once I set it, I'll never have to set it again. Like as soon as Clay plugs this in, and it's charging.
Let me see.
So what we'll do is we'll let it charge for just a little bit, and then I'll unplug it for a while and plug it back in and make sure that it's saved its settings and just automatically charges. And I mean, it being so inexpensive, if something were to happen to it, I mean, he could just literally undo the mount, take it off, and just put a new one on.
So cool.
Awesome, that's exciting. If you guys aren't familiar with the Raptor liner, I don't know, you've been somewhere else, but this is one of my favorite products to use. You guys can get this on Amazon. You can get it at, I think AutoZone or O'Reilly's has it in aerosols you can use. But they make 2 different ones. They make black, which is like your typical black bed liner. And then they make the tintable one, so you can add, 20% of a base, a color to it. And so, if you had a red truck, you could shoot red Raptor. And it's awesome. We use that a lot as well. But man, they even sell the kits that come with the little siphon shoot gun. And you literally just pour activator in this, put the lid back on it, shake it up, and shoot it. It does make a bit of a mess. As you can see, we put down plastic. Our paint booth's full of a bunch of parts right now. We usually do this in the paint booth, but right now we just lay out plastic and go to town. So the part that I'm getting ready to shoot is the rear end cover that bolts in the bed. Instead of raising the whole bed floor up, we just wanted to make a simple bolt-in sheet metal part that covered up, rear end travel that needed to come up inside the bed. So I don't want to hang it. I want to lay it so I can shoot down inside of it. So I'm going to do it in 2 different stages. So I'm going to shoot the inside of it now, and then we'll let it flash for about an hour, and then I'll flip it over and set it on a couple little stands, and then I'll shoot the top of it. And then honestly let it flash for an hour, and then we can go ahead and do an install. I usually short the line by, I don't know, 3/16 or something. I think that if you go to the line, it's too much activator. It dries super fast. So, and it fills this bottle up a little too full. You just literally dump that in and shake it up, like shake weight style. Or a bartender. Like this is a martini. Oh no, this is tintable also. Is it?
Jesse, what you thinking, man? How you thinking?
I'm just excited to see it on the ground. We've not seen it on the ground with a whole body on it, you know, since we did all the chassis stuff. Ooh, the lift will just come out from under it. I gotta take this piece of tape off so I don't see it.
It's your new signature.
Level 7 PPF. Go down a little? Look at the frame around. I wanted it to have a 1/2 inch array on the frame. Oh, did you? Okay. Just because of the way the bodies on these trucks are. They have a higher arch in the front than they do the back. You ever notice that about OBSs?
What's that?
Like the arch height,
Yeah.
like the rear arches are low.
Oh, yeah.
Like what, 4 inches? Oh, well, it's the axle tube to frame rail
It's 3 inches.
is the limiting factor.
Yeah, I was just wondering how far the tire was from the pinch wheel. Because we'd have to stay over 3 inches.
It's the exact same amount of room right now. Like I have a little less than my fist between the axle tube and the frame, and a little less than my fist from the top of the tire to that seam in the tub.
Gotcha. So it's...
But it's low.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
It's where it's living.
Yeah, it's street truck low. It's lower than it was when it came here by almost an inch.
Wow.
Yeah.
We're back in the shop this morning. Dylan's going to go ahead and get the bed notch cover installed while I finish aluminum up the taillight harness. I'm going to throw the taillight harness in, then we can get the back bumper on. And we've got, I think that's a pretty good amount of work for a day and a half. So I'm pretty happy with that. Hood's on, hood looks awesome. I can put the grill in. I don't know if we'll make it this weekend, but we'll get the grill on and get the front fog lights wired up and put all that back on, and then it'll look like a real truck.
Are you happy with the stance?
I think it's perfect. I think it's perfect. I talked to Clay last night and he was like, he said the same thing. He was like, that's exactly where I want it. Yeah, so I think it's perfect.
Sweet.
Real quick, while Dylan's putting that thing on jack stands, I was going to show you these plates. So that notch cover has flanges that are completely 90 degrees, they're vertical. So we want to be able to actually unbolt and bolt that thing back in. But the inner tubs have a profile to them. And so if we made the flange go to the profile of the inner fender, you wouldn't be able to get that part out. So we designed and machined these. So imagine this goes up against the profile of the tub, and they bolt in from the wheel side of the tub. Cover drops down and it's got a bolt pattern, so it can just drop straight down along this. And just powder coated these, so these turned out really good.
As you guys can see, we got the bed notch cover put back in. Fits really nicely in between these plates. We've obviously made it to fit the profile of the bed, so now that it's all good, we're gonna anti-seize some stainless bolts, get it all bolted down, and then it will be ready to rock.
Ooh, love it.
So now that the bed's on the chassis, I can go ahead and make the taillight sub-harness that goes up in the back of the bed. So I had already terminated a 6-pin DT connector and rigid mounted it to the top of the driver's side frame rail. So now what I did is I kind of laid out a test panel or like test links on the table. So I've pinned the 6-pin DT connector and I'm concentric twisting this. Not really necessary, but I've already concentric twisted the entire truck, so might as well do the taillight sub-harness. So what's kind of neat, well, I think it's neat, you guys may not, but like you start with the inner core, so 2 twisted pair, and then you wrap wiring around it. And so this is like the beginning, what would come off the chassis, and then it'll split into 2 harnesses, one for left and right. So sometimes you don't have enough wire to like fill in the gaps when you twist it around, so you have to use some filler wire. So you can actually see that I've used 3 white 18 gauge wires as filler. So they're just like cut off here. So once I do my terminations for park light and ground, like I'll trim those back even further and I'll put a heat shrink over that. But like before I put this heat shrink back here, you guys can see that I've got those 3 18 gauge filler wires just cut right there. So that'll just get covered up now. At least we'll have from here to here done. You can only do it on pairs. You can only do it on two wires. Okay, so this is it. All I got to do is terminate the ends of it, but this is where it plugs in on the frame rail to that DT connector. And then this is our transition point. So this side goes up to the driver's side tail light. This is passenger side tail light, and then a little pigtail for the license plate illumination. So now I'm gonna like final install this, and I'm gonna hang them out through the tail light holes and cut them back and terminate them on the truck. I don't know why I have this whole line of mine in my head.
Here goes, boy. Oh, this goes right here.
And there's setups that you can get that are less involved. I have a local guy that man this for
All right, that's gonna do it for this weekend. We got the bed on, got the bed notch cover bolted in, and it fits awesome. Dylan did a killer job doing that. The onboard battery tender's all plugged in, and we tested that. It seems to be working perfect. It worked out good to where the battery tender itself saves its setting. So just as planned, like you just plug it in and it kicks itself on and goes into lithium mode. So that works. Taillight harness we built and installed, all that works good. Dylan and Robbie got the hood on while I was out this morning. And so, yeah, overall, really productive day and a half. So thanks for watching. There's gonna be a lot more content coming. We're gonna be finishing this up over the next couple months. And then there'll probably be like a full like feature video where we do a lot of driving. We're probably gonna video when it's at the dyno. Since it's got that BMW trans, Ed's gonna be here for quite a while helping us do transmission calibration work. So it'll be on the rolling dyno for a while. So lots more video coverage coming over the next few months of this one. So as always, thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys.